Hey Collective, and welcome back to Altruistic Channel. Today's message is going to be dedicated towards actually kind of exploring a question I had gotten from an acquaintance of mine who had seen the two videos on the fairy tales and how you can use your imagination to solve real world problems in really creative ways. And the question was, why is it that I always make it a king and queen or a king and king in the Adam and Steve story? Why do I always make them go into peasantry? And why do I have them go in that route? And they inferred that it was because I was the peasant. And I said, no, actually it has to do with the fact that when people are really successful, and since I'm dealing with a lot of successful minds, they tend to find their life to reflect their successes, and so at some point they begin to get enthralled into that reality, and it becomes all that they understand. And that's not good or bad, it's just, it is what it is, right? Like, you manifested something great, and so you live in that world. And so the reason I always have them go into a peasantry situation is because it allows them to remove themselves from that reality and expose themselves to a different set of circumstances that they may or may not have ever been through before. And so it allows them to then see their problems from a different vantage point and realize how most of the time it's really not all that important, and then they can center their energy into what's truly about them. And so I just wanted to clarify that because I thought it was kind of interesting that people put a little bit of ego in there and made it reflective of like me vying for attention and stuff. And I was like, no, it has to do with the fact that when people manifest their own vision, it's the thing that I was talking about with the Justine Bateman video that I did a while back, where she was talking about how when you become famous, you are surrounded by that reality and you always get the yeses. You never get a no. You always are told that you can do whatever you want. And then when it begins to fade, you start to go into this reality shock where that bubble you were living in pops, and then you're left on the ground, so to speak. And so that reality shift really jars people. And so as the collective is moving through that process where a lot of what we thought was true is not true, and a lot of things are falling apart, even though we can fix them, and everybody's kind of trying to dodge the bullets, I've learned that for me personally, as a titanium person, I just kind of stand there and let the shots ricochet. Like, I don't let it affect me. But I've learned that when people run, they get shot, they get followed with it. And so for me, I've just learned to stand still and then allow what's going to happen. But I thought it was a very interesting question, and I wanted to explain in more depth that whole thing about how when we make our vision or our dreams come true, that we become part of that world, and that's one of the great benefits. But let's say when you're going through a major P word, or you're going through a very big shift reality check for all of the collective, it can be extra jarring, and you start to realize that by pulling yourself away from the situation that you're in and exposing yourself to other minds or other people or people that think like you start to detach from that vision, and you start to realize that there's more out there. And so especially with kings and queens scenarios that would be going through this, ascension portal, that would be one of the more interesting aspects to all journeys, is the fact that you at some point realize that what was once true for you or what was once good enough for you no longer is applicable to who you've become. And it's something that's divinely guided. It's not something that we can control. Like, another party may want to control and nitpick, and they see that you're changing, and so they begin to become very critical of you, or it becomes very toxic all the time, and you can never make the person feel like you're doing enough. It's always something wrong, and it starts to bring your energy down because you've started to outshine them possibly, or you've just changed vibration. And when you do that, they start to feel that you start to detach from them, and that's really challenging, especially when you've built empires and worlds and created all of this stuff, but you can't align with that energy anymore. And so the reason I always make them become peasants is because it makes people understand in the storyline as subtext that what I'm saying is that sometimes you need to go back to the basics in order to truly find what you're about now. And though it may be where everything you've built kind of crumbles, you still have your money. I mean, that's the one thing I was put about the kings and queens, is they always have their assets. It's just a change in their environment, and sometimes they, need to quit, or they need to get fired, and it looks really jarring, and it brings the world down, but it's for their highest good. And especially with the collective going through this little era right now where we're having to go through a lot of growing pains, and it's one of those things that where I look at it in a very, very uplifting way, but it doesn't change the fact that it kind of sucks, and that it's part of the academy. And so when you're finding yourself in those situations, especially where I'm going and the people I will be dealing with, a lot of them are going to have situations where what was once really healthy for them and was once once really, really affirming and really, really all they ever dreamt of, it becomes something that's not there anymore because the divine taps them for calling. One of the greatest things that I have that I really want to do is an undercover project with actually Tyler Perry, of all people, because I just think he's a brilliant mind. And the reason I chose him is because of the history he did. So he and I have that connection to the groundedness of what we went through the journey. And though we're even though I'm just about to move up and he's already been there, one of the things that we have is that we never lose sight of that journey. That journey was so very specific to specific people that we never lose that. So for us, it would be a little bit more camaraderie in the conversation. Like we would understand each other very quickly on where the goal was of the show. And what it would be is to take kings and queens, CEOs, presidents, and people who are disconnected from what reality is. And the reason I would say that that would be of a good venture for most people is if you find yourself looking at the world and not understanding why everybody's so upset, or not understanding why people are so afraid, if you're finding yourself in a situation where it's not affecting you, but it's affecting the entire world, then there's probably a problem. That's a problem. That's a warning sign, because that means that at some point that bubble will pop. But if you take responsibility and just go and be like a proactive about it, and you do something like the venture I want to do with Tyler Perry, then you would actually go and you would experience what being a peasant is, being a homeless person, or being a person that works in a hospital, or being a person, put yourself in situations where you are now grounding your energy into the real world, not the world that you've created in dreamland, because I'm all about imagination. I'm all about it. But I still live in the 3D. Like, a lot of people don't understand what it's like for us right now who are going through the P word, and we're stuck in houses with like 9 other people who make noise and all that stuff, and we can't escape because we're not allowed to leave, and we're not allowed to breathe, and we're not allowed to eat, and we're not allowed to go here, and we're not allowed. And so that caged feeling is something that the elite are missing in their experience, and it's starting to create a lot of friction between what their understanding of reality is and what's truly going on with the world. And when you try to lead people, and if you're trying to represent the people, that disconnect is now haunting a lot of people. And so that's why this project would be kind of fun with Mr. Perry, is because I know that he would invest the time, as I would, and helping people understand what it was like to go through the journey and prepare them for a few days in that experience. They would go home obviously to their own place, but they would be undercover and they would experience what it truly is like and get to know the stories, and it would ground them back to reality and to understanding that what they're experiencing is a blessing. But the best thing to do is turn around and help the next person up, and you can't do that if you don't understand what they're going through. So though, like right now, I'm struggling with all this stuff. Like I'm just for someone who's very high vibrational, being around petty arguments and around very low vibrational stuff really just kind of gets to me. And so though I'm making it just fine, it's one of those things that we as a collective must deal with. But it's something that a lot of people, well, not a lot, but there's a minority of people who make the decisions who don't understand that that's a reality. Their impression is that everybody is able to go and just do what they need to do, and that they have the freedom to live on their own or whatnot. And they don't understand that those of us who are in hospitality don't have that luxury, and everything crashed around us already. And they don't understand that we're not able to run away or to get away from people, and that we have to stay stagnant in that location. And so no matter how high vibrational we are, we have all the stuff going on around us, and it brings us down. And so they have a luxury that other people don't have. And so that's a very big grounding effort. And why in the fairy tales, like you hear the drama in the back, how the fairy tales are always about bringing people into a peasantry so that they're allowed to experience what the commoner does. It's one of the points of the first story I told, which was why Princess Anne would go and be a peasant in other communities, is because she wanted to make sure the spiritual needs were being dealt with, and the only way to really know that is to experience their world. And so as we venture through this whole thing, you guys, one of the things that I do is I make sure that I relate to people in a way that they understand the reality of what's happening to the people that they are trying to lead. And that's what turquoise leadership is understanding the actual physicality of what is being experienced that is different from our own experience. I will always be very, very grateful for my experience when this all goes and I do what I'm doing. But it doesn't take away the fact that I'm so grounded in the energy that it will never leave me. Other people haven't had that experience, and that's not a judgment. It just is what it is. But to experience it in a way where you bring that energy back and you humble them into experiencing what it must be like to not be able to not go to work, to be a maid, or to be a person who is a parking, whatever it is, some menial job, or custodian, or a janitor of some kind, where you can't take the day off because your family is depending on you. They haven't made that leap. They haven't had their dream come come true. And so how do you lead those people and truly understand what's going on when you are living in a castle or in a palace? And it's not a judgment. You made your dreams come true, but you can't lead the people without experiencing the truth of what they're going through. It was one of the most poignant moments I remember when Miss Winfrey went to see the aftermath of Katrina, and she went to the whatever it is, and she started crying, and it was like a big reality shock to her. Meanwhile, everybody in Louisiana, where I'm from, we were looking at her going, well, that must, not to judge, we were grateful that she was caring, but we were like, well, that's kind of nice to be shocked. Meanwhile, this is our reality every day. And that was jarring, and it was one of those moments that I really attached myself emotionally to the wonderfulness of Miss Oprah Winfrey. She was willing to go, just like if you guys remember Ellen DeGeneres, another great person who's from New Orleans, actually went back and was on a boat sobbing, watching what had happened to our hometown. That reality is what we really need right now in our leadership, and that's why I'm really attracted to Tyler Perry for that project, is because I know that he would love to do that. He is a pioneer in that way. One of the great things about Anderson Cooper is that he's a reporter, so he's gone into war areas. He understands the reality. So these energies that I'm attracted to, I should say, are people who already have an understanding that what they went through will never leave them, and so they're willing to step up and step down, so to speak, go undercover, see what's really going on, and then report or talk about it or bring it to light, because it allows everyone to feel heard. And that is the whole point of these shows. That's the whole point of this turquoise leadership, is that when you represent the elite, then people are already disconnected from you because you haven't humbled yourself. Not that you did anything wrong. It's actually the complete opposite. You've done everything right for yourself. But if you are a leader and you don't know what's truly going on the ground level, then you can't address the real concerns of those people, is all I'm saying. You can hypothesize about it, which is really strong, and really, really I recommend everybody do. But when it comes to actually leading them, as opposed to talking into their needs, to lead them, you must come from the people, and you must understand what they're going through. Women right now who used to be waitresses, who used to make enough money to pay for their children, no longer have that viability. What are they going through? Well, how do we find out? We send a really affluent woman into what that must be like, and we let them experience what it is to have all their money and resources taken away, to be living now and moving from a house where they used to be able to afford it, and now move them to an apartment in a really dangerous area, and let them experience a week of that and see what that will do to their psyche. Or take somebody who is a mogul, who is incredibly powerful and can change the world with the drop of his dime, doesn't understand what's the big problem with the vaccination, and so we send him and to see what it's like for the people who have suffered ramifications from that and who are living paycheck to paycheck, and what that does to their lives. Or we can send me or Tyler Perry into undercover work in the homeless population to show what that experience is like right now during the P word. And what happens is that the world catches up to itself and it sees itself for what's truly happening. When you stratify society, when you accomplish all your dreams and you make it to where you're going, it's really easy to realize that you've done everything you can, that you are truly blessed, and you live in that blessing. But if you're a humanitarian or have like a calling like mine that's on a soul level, it changes the dynamic, because no matter how blessed you are, your blessing is to help other people be blessed. And so for me, that's one of my greatest strengths, is the fact that I'm not stopping till that I accomplish those things. There are charities that we should be building that have to do with what it's like to have mom and dad at an old folk home and not have anybody come visit them. Well, let's experience what that is as a nursing person. Let's send one of these incredibly powerful people like Mr. Gates or Miss Melinda Gates, and we send them to a nursing home and have to deal with the psyche of the people that are left behind, that are going home without anybody being there. Or we go into these situations humbling ourselves and experiencing what is truly going on for the people. And then that way the bureaucracy and the talking at each other stops. And I know for a lot of them right now, there's at least one energy that I'm exceedingly attracted to, that's like psychically, I don't know if that's the thing, but like we're connected energetically, and they're going through it. Like, I don't know what's going on, but whenever they bring topics like this up, it's just like a big wall that they keep hitting, and it feels like it's going to blow up at any minute, because I feel the tension on my end. And so to that person, whoever that is, just remember that what you're doing is for your soul. Your soul wants something else. And no matter what happens, and no matter what the debris is that goes with it, if it fell apart and it comes down around you, then it wasn't built strong enough. And so if something is giving you the opportunity to rebuild it with stronger and more vibrancy to it, and lights your passion again, then that's worth, like, I would just go and bomb the fucking, well, I mean, not literally, don't go bomb anything because I don't want to get in trouble, but you know what I mean, I would just go and light the freaking fire and be like, okay, there goes the building. I would do something to make it come down just to get myself free of that. But that's me. I'm not destructive, but I do understand that if my soul wants that desperately for me to grow, and everything is coming down around me, and I'm feeling pressure, and people are trying to conform me and trying to tell me that I'm crazy, or and meanwhile my soul's going, what? You already built an empire. What are you doing listening to this? And that just builds like a fucking coal. And it's like putting so much pressure that you don't realize that if you just let it come down around you, poof, there's a diamond. Perfect fucking diamond. And now you're shining brightly. But it took the demolition, and that's kind of what the collective is going through right now, and that's the detachment that we're having. And so that's why I make kings and queens in my stories become peasants, is because at the end of the day, though they have done everything they can to help the world, right now they are in a beautiful palace surrounded by a lot of trees and a lot of beauty, and the rest of the world is stuck in an apartment with 10 other people, and they have no way to escape because they're not allowed to go out for very long walks. They're not allowed to leave their neighborhood. They're not supposed to go and talk to people. They're supposed to stay distant, and that really makes everything so crunchy that the world starts to break apart, and that's the friction. That's why we're reacting the way that we are. That's why people are afraid of the V word, is because it's easy for you to live in a castle and have the best medical care in the world, but the rest of us don't even have that. Most of us don't have jobs right now. What about grounding that energy and remembering who you're speaking to and understand that they're not being heard? You know what I mean? And who's going to be brave enough to stand that storm and turn around and go, I'm going to hear these people? And so that's why I always make that point with the peasantry, is because a king or a queen or an emperor or an emperor, well, I would say this, a king or a queen that is willing to do this undercover work that I'm talking about, to go with me and I'll show them what's really going on, they become emperor and empresses immediately, because they immediately are triggered into themselves. That's how they became so powerful, is because they were driven by something, and then it got stagnant to some degree. But not everybody, because I mean, look, there's really powerful people who are doing amazing work, so I'm not castigating, but I'm saying, so why I'm thinking the way that I think. And so imagine what happens immediately to the souls that were like literally stagnant out of nowhere, and they were just like, I'm not happy with this anymore. I'm tired of being told what to do. I'm tired of being told what to say, and that I can't question things or whatever it is. I'm not trying to pick a fight with anybody, but you see what I'm saying? So, but as soon as they have an opportunity to really go and experience what's going on in the real world, outside of the bubble, outside of their palace, then immediately it grounds them into understanding the truth of humanity and why humanity is in danger. And that really helps any leader become the next level. And that's what I wanted to say, guys. I hope you guys have a blessed day. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know. Please like and subscribe to my channel. If you need anything else, I will attach on at least LinkedIn my phone number, and you guys can reach me at any time. I'm going to try to figure out what I can do to alleviate the strain that I'm going through with my high vibration in a very low vibrational environment, and try to remember that there's nothing anybody else is doing wrong. It's just, it's toxic for me. And so I feel like I'm mirroring someone else who's going through it too. So whoever that is out there, you have my support. I understand that you're going through it. If I can be there for you, I will be. But just know that all things that must come down sometimes do come down. If it's for the betterment of, only your soul knows why. I mean, I don't know why. I'm connected to somebody and I don't understand it. But if we're connected for some reason, then the best I can tell you is that I usually just light the wick and just go and just let it come down. You know, because usually if there's that much friction, then there's something, an underlying energy that's on this side that needs to be voiced anyway, and so until that happens, there's no movement. So that's my little piece. I know that's a little bit of a digression, but you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope you guys have a wonderful life. Bye.